Hello everyone, this is Reza and welcome to the final part of character rigging for beginners. Now we are going to continue with our character setup and put in place our secondary controllers. Now we are going to start with the arms, the elbow, the foot, the eyes, and finally finalize the character, clean up the scene, and pretty much finish the series. Now, let's start with the arms. Before I bring in any control curves, there is one problem that we need to talk about. And again, I actually tried to not to make everything perfect. So along the way, we have even more opportunities to introduce more tools and potential errors that you may run into. And this is one of them. Now, I could have easily named this bone JNT-R wrist, but I named it JNT end R wrist. And if you remember, in this skinning session, we didn't include all the end bones in our skinning process. As a result of that, this bone doesn't play any role in our skinning. So if I go ahead and bring my tool settings in my paint weight, I'm looking at the right hand side. So if I go to the right hand side, you can see that we have shoulder, we had forearm, and all of a sudden we jump to index. In other words, we have all the right influence for the forearm, but this bone is not going to send any influence to any of these points. Instead, all these A bones are just gonna pick up the slack and carry the load. While it's not a bad idea, and as a matter of fact, I can simply just go ahead and move this, and we can see I'm getting an okay deformation. I'm thinking of this as an opportunity to learn how to include an unskinned bone into the mix so we can make use of it. The process is actually fairly straightforward. And I'm going to do this for both sides. Let's start for the left hand side. I'm going to select the JNT end. So I'm going to select the bone or any bone that you would like to add to your bound, and then shift select the geometry, and then you go to skin all the way to edit influence and add this bone as an influence. Again, the process is fairly straightforward. The good news is the default setting usually works. So if I go apply and close the window, select the geometry and open the tool again, there we have it. This bone is now in charge of this part of the surface. Now you can go ahead and smooth out the area if you wish to improve the skin, and at any point of time, you can go ahead and fix those areas. I can even select on all the A bones and just share the load so we don't see a really rigid deformation in here. But all in all, that is it. It's as simple as that. That's how you do it. I'm just going to go to the other side and do the same thing. I'm going to bring this script here. I might as well use this sphere control. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to move it up. And we are going to use the same control for the other side. Actually, I'm going to start with left. And because of that, I'm going to select its color to red. Now, needless to say, this one goes to the wrist. So I'm just going to make sure that it's easy to select. Good. Now I'm going to duplicate this and snap it to the elbow. So I'm going to press Control D on it, V, and snap it to the elbow. Now with that, I am gonna make sure that I'm holding down W, make sure I'm in object mode, and I'm just gonna slide this character back. And no, I'm not going to set the pivot here. This actually is going to be centered pivot, that one, and that is in charge of the elbow. I'm just gonna reduce its scale, select both of them, and freeze their transformation. Let's name them. This one is arm01. Of course, I'm going to include L. And the other one is L elbow 01. I'm going to select both of them and mirror them to the other side. Now we already know how to do that. I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate, Ctrl G to group, and put -1 in scale X. Two things I need to do. First things first, I need to recolor it and I need to rename it. So this is going to be R elbow 01, and the other one is going to be CRTL arm R arm 01. I'm going to select both of them and freeze their transformation. It's a good idea, always a good idea, to just check the pivot and make sure the pivot is set correctly. It has to be at the center of the joint, and this one at the center of the controller. With these two selected, I'm going to press Shift P to bring them out of that group node, get rid of the group node, and I'm going to select all four and just middle mouse drag them into controllers group. So they are inside the controllers group. You can always select them, select the controls group and press P. Now while we have them, let's clean up some of these. Just going to freeze transformation on it again. I noticed there are some values on them. Now with those selected, let's go ahead and clean up the channels that we don't use. So for the arms, we are going to rotate them and we are going to translate them. We have no use for scale, so lock and hide the scale. For the elbow, we're actually going to move them, but we don't rotate them and we don't scale them. So select rotation and scale, lock and hide, selected. Now let's look after their constraints. For the arm, the first step is to point constrain the arm control to IK handle. So let's do that. Let's select the driver and I'm going to zoom in so I can select it easier. I'm going to shift select the IK handle, and I'm going to go to constrain, point constrain, and reset its settings. Since these two are sharing the same pivot, there is no offset, so I can actually click and as you can see, the offset channel is empty. You can just leave maintain offset off. You can have it on, and again, it's not going to have any impact. I'm going to do that for the other side as well. As we start to move the controller, we can see the arm follows, but if we select the center of gravity and move it, you can see the arm orients. Because it's going to be an IK rig, we want the arm to stay put, so we can do things like handstand, and it's going to be very difficult to do that if the arm constantly orients every time you move or rotate the center of gravity, and that's going to be a problem. Now to fix that, it's actually fairly simple. I'm going to zoom in, you select the arm control, and then you zoom in and select the wrist bone, and you do a simple orient constraint with maintain offset on. I'm going to go to orient, maintain offset on, and add. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Now look what happens if I move the center of gravity. You can see arms don't orient. They do move, but they're not rotating. And that's exactly what I want. Very simple. Now it's time to take care of the elbow controllers using pole vector constraint. So as usual, we're always going to select the control first, shift select the IK handle. With these two selected, I'm going to go to constraint and pole vector. There's not much in here. You can reset the settings and say add. Now later on, in more intermediate or advanced rigging, we are going to talk about how to set up the pole vector constraint differently to avoid any nudge or any flipping or any repositioning of the elbow. But for now, it's just we're taking baby step, and what we do works for us just fine. So if I were to bring this character here, you can see pole vector is in charge of the elbow now, and it works for us beautifully. Now it's time to kind of add a little bit of variety. We work on the upper body for a while. Let's go to lower body and look after the foot controllers. So I'm not gonna simplify much. We really want to have a proper reverse foot lock for foot movement, because chances are for your own rig you want to have a good walk cycle, and to do that you definitely need to have all the necessary controllers in place. So I'm not going to simplify that part too much, and it's going to be actually very exciting and still very easy to follow. Now, first things first, I need something. I need a controller. So let's bring that foot control. How about that? We actually do have it. So let's bring that in, and I'm going to reposition it. I'm going to make it red, and of course, as usual, I'm going to freeze its transformation, and I'm going to call this CTRL underscore leg 01. Well, you may ask where the pivot is going to go. It's going to go to the ankle. So let's have that on the other side as well. So I'm going to press Control D, Control G, -1 in scale X to ungroup and rename. So the first one was Control L leg 01, and this one is CTRL R leg 01. While we're setting this up, let's select the elbow controllers, press Control D to duplicate both of them, Shift P, and use them for knees. I'm going to bring them forward. Now I'm going to use the same trick. I'm going to snap this to the knee. So holding down D and holding down, well, actually holding down V to snap it to the knee first. I'm gonna go to wireframe, make sure it's done correctly. Yep, that's good. And then I'm gonna just translate it forward in positive Z. I'm gonna do the same thing for this guy. All right, time to freeze their transformation and rename them. So freeze transform. Now the thing is, I'm actually glad that we ran into this, because we've already locked the transformation for these two. Well, actually we locked the rotation and scale. So if something like this happened to you, you can always go to channel control, edit, channel control, and just very quickly bring back rotation and scale. I'm gonna move back rotation, I'm gonna move back the scale, I'm Gonna do the same thing for this guy. And all I need to do is to go and unlock them. Great. Now you can go and freeze transform them. Another way of doing this, if you don't want to do it, is when you go to freeze transform option box, you can just say, I want to freeze transform only translate, but not scale or rotate. That's another way of doing this. But again, I try to use any opportunity to talk about something new. So now that's done, let's rename them. Select this one and rename it. This one is going to be CTRL and right, and it's going to be knee 01. Going to copy. This one's going to be CTRL L knee 01. Now it's time to add constraints to the knee control. It's much faster to do the pull vector and get this over with, and then we can have our entire focus on the legs. So we know already what to do. Select the control, select the IK handle. We go to constraint and do a pull vector. And just like we did for the arm and elbow controls, I'm going to select all four, shift select the controls and just press P. So everything is nice and clean under the foot control. What I can do for the knee controls is just, I'm going to go ahead and hide and lock rotation and scale. Okay, let's zoom in. Now, right now, the JNTL ankle 01 drives the entire chain, and the foot bone drives the toe bone. So this is the foot bone that drives the toe bone, and we have the BN ankle, and that drives the entire chain here. We need to find a way to reverse this. We need to find a way so the toe can drive the entire chain, so the character can do a toe roll, and the foot bone should control the ankle bone, so we can create the ball roll for the character. Now I'm going to go and expand the skeleton and find JNTL ankle, and I'm going to press Ctrl D on it to duplicate it. Then I'm going to press Shift P on it to drop it out of the skeleton 01 group node. Now from there we need to select the entire hierarchy and resize each bone, because right now they have the exact same size as our main chain bone, and it's really difficult to see what's going on. I think I'm gonna make them a bit bigger so they're easier to see. I'm gonna zoom in, for example this one, and I'm going to make this probably 0.75. Is it too big? It's not too bad. So yeah, I can totally see that the reverse chain is bigger than the skinned chain. I'm actually going to give it a prefix. Instead of JNT, I'm going to call this RF JNT for reverse foot, ankle 01, reverse foot joint, foot 01, and reverse foot. And we don't need to call this end, since this one is actually going to drive the entire chain. So just L toe 01. Now with the RF toe selected, I'm going to press Ctrl D on it. So I'm going to create the secondary bone, and I'm going to just slide it back. So that's going to be the heel bone for our reverse footlock. So as a result of that, I'm going to call this JNT L heel 01. Now, as you can see, if I select, the hierarchy is not correct. I want the chain to start from here, and then we connect that to the RF toe, and then RF foot, and then we go to RF ankle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just select the hill one, Shift P to unparent that for now. So we need to find a way to reverse the direction of this chain. Right now the bones, nothing but a representation of the direction of the chain, so they're actually showing the direction this way. I want these bones and this chain to show the opposite direction. There's a really nice tool in Maya that allows us to do that. I'm going to select this and I'm going to go to reroute selection, and voila, now the direction of the chain is opposite. Now I can select the RF toe, shift select RF heel and press P, and if I select the heel now, we have the right direction. So that heel starts the you can do a foot tap with that heel, and then I can do a toe roll and ball roll for the character. That's exactly what I want. I may actually go ahead. Again, I don't want to have the same color here as the actual bone, so I can actually go ahead and enable overrides on that too. So actually select the bone, and I'm going to enable override on the bones. As beginners, you might make that mistake, and we don't want this to happen. All right, now it's time to mirror this joint to the other side, and we continue. So with the joint selected, I'm going to go to skeleton and mirror. We would like to rename L to R, and done. Probably all I need to do is just to go ahead and recolor it. So I'm going to very quickly change its color to blue and save. Alright, we're going to end this tutorial here, and in the next lesson we're going to finalize the foot.